Happy Friday, PSWs and friends across Ontario and Canada, and welcome to PSW Podcast. We come to you guys live every single Friday at 11 a.m. to talk about all the issues in the PSW world, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything else, and then some. My name is Miranda Dolmanovich. I'm the CEO of the Ontario PSW Association and host of PSW Podcast. And yet again, I'm joined by my co-host and COO of both associations, Ian De Silva. And today we are here to talk about the word no in the PSW world and when you can say no, because there's been a lot of controversy around that on our threads this week, Ian, hasn't there?
A lot, yeah, a lot of unsurety. We'll use that word. Not really a word, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, they always say, well, if I say no, I get fired.
Yep, we hear
That
that.
seems to be the kind of the thing. Or I said no and I got in trouble, or I said no, etc. And then the question came about of when can you say no as a personal support worker to something that's being asked of you in your duties?
So let's start. Let's go right into this because there's a lot of issues about this that transcend a lot of that intersect with other issues. So when do you want to where should we start on this topic? Because
I
this
think we need to start on one of the things that pop in my head when I'm talking about saying no as a personal support worker, as I am one of 20 years. And I remember working in long-term care as a PSW. And I remember that the nurses used to crush up medications and they put it in the applesauce of residents that we were feeding, and they'd hand us the applesauce or whatever with the medications in that, and then we were told to feed the resident.
oh
That's a no.
yeah, so no.
That's a no. And now, there's been some controversy on that statement as well, because they're like, well, if the nurse is standing right there, can't I do it? No, you cannot. That is what you would call a delegated task. PSWs are not supposed to be dealing in controlled acts. That is not something that we do unless we are formally delegated by a regulated health professional. Because what happens, Ian? What happens? Let's say the nurse is having a bad day or somebody messed up the med cart and the medication that's given to that resident is wrong, and the PSW gives the medication to the resident, what happens to that PSW?
The PSW gets blamed.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. But if the nurse crushes it up and just hands it to you, that's not delegation.
Well, that's not delegation at all.
That's the question. I think that is the confusing is what is when the nurse has to formally say this is a controlled substance. I'm doing this. You need to feed him this and then do this for this specific person. Am I
And
correct?
you exactly, and you have to sign this document
Sign this
stating that you agree to this delegation for this one individual.
exactly. That is the process that you need to follow, and that's honored in the breach honored more in the breach than in the observance. It seems like in Ontario.
There
Um,
seems to be that way. It's
I see.
it's
Well, I get why, because I mean it's a pragmatic thing. This is just going to be it's just a transitionary thing, but there's a lot of rights issues that happen within those simple movements of a bowl to a pole. That's just the truth of it, and there's legal protections and implications of doing so. Um, so that's a big one. Um, and you're right though. It gets blamed by the PSW because now they're told you're the one who did this, and they did. So that's the problem. So you've done it. You knew you weren't. You officially knowing you're not supposed to, and you do it. That's another one. Um, yeah, the other one we're hearing a lot of is injuries, like when I can say no. Yeah.
when
So
I can
let's
say no. Yeah.
so we do you want to hear we can talk a bit more about the medications, but the medications is a huge risk. Now there is medication training. So if I take medication training as a PSW from our partners at Nucleus, does that mean I'm free to do medications?
No.
What does that mean then? What does that tell
So
us?
what does that mean? So just because you take a medication course does not mean that you can walk into a long-term care facility and administer medications or work at a hospital and administer medications. Now, as we all know, in Ontario healthcare, there's a lot of different domains. In some places, yes, PSWs can administer medications. One of those places is public domain. So what do I mean by public domain? Is retirement homes, group homes, community living, kind of more in the social services world as opposed to long-term care, hospital, and even in home care to a degree. If it's private care, if you're working through an agency, no, it has to be a delegated task. I don't care if it's in a bubble pack. I don't care if if it's already been set out for you. You don't know what these medications are most of the time. I mean, not many people can look at a bunch of different meds, especially as PSWs, and go, oh, I know exactly, that's an Ativan, that's an olanzapine. We don't know what these things are, so we don't know what we're feeding to these individuals that are vulnerable and they're in our care. And as we all know, there's administration. So administration is where you have to put it in their mouth themselves, like yourself. So
Yes.
administration is where you're inserting something inside the body. Okay. So that is administration. Assisting is what PSWs do. So, example, when I worked in home care, I was delegated for this one particular client with their insulin and with their medications. So, I had to give her her insulin once a day, but I was trained on how to do that. And I had to sign off on a form, and I had to give her her medications once a day. That's fine, but I had other clients that I had to assist with their medication, which means that I would put their medication in a, most times, funny enough, a shot glass, and then I would hand them the shot glass, and they themselves would take it from my hand to put it up to their mouth and take the shot of medication. That's assisting.
Yes. Well said. Yes.
That does not require delegation. The
And
other one, however, is delegation.
so PSWs can assist in long-term care homes.
PSWs can assist, I believe, with right now it's with non-controlled acts. So there is legislation now that allows personal support workers to administer certain types of non-controlled. So not narcotics, not prescription. So I'm talking like Tylenol, Advil, melatonin, stuff like that. But they still have to go through the training. There has to be a training that the home has to provide for them in order for them to do that. And they do have a right to say no to that extra task in long term care
We do.
without there being any repercussions. That was our deal, remember, with the
That's correct.
Ministry of Long Term Care. So, in that instance, we don't hear so much about that, but I do hear a lot about PSWs being asked to do things that are way outside of their scope of practice. And a lot of it does fall within the public domain world.
So public domain worlds, let's identify who we're talking about here. This is hospitals,
No,
let's long-term care.
no,
Oh, public domain. I'm sorry. I'm thinking
I'm
public
like, you're going
funded.
wrong. Public
Thinking public
funded is
funded.
that.
I'm sorry. You mean home care, retirement homes, public domain.
Yeah,
My apologies. Got it
no,
on the
it's okay.
side. So
It's Friday.
Friday.
But that's the
Yeah,
truth of
public
it.
domain. Sorry.
Public domains means that any Joe Blow can be hired off the street into a retirement home, given a quick course on, UCP, as we all know, and then suddenly they're giving out medications and they're signing the Mars.
Yeah, it's that simple. There's no real.
It's kind of the wild, wild west out there. It's
I
a
know.
little scary.
A little scary when you.
And that's why we push the medications, is because, or not the medications, we push the insurance because these individuals are giving these medications out. I mean, I'm a personal support worker. When I went to school, there was no training in medication, and I know there still is no training in medication when you're in school to become a PSW. So, why would you take on those tasks? In my opinion, if you want to do meds, that you become a nurse.
Or if you want to be a PSW, okay, and this is something we've been getting a lot of. You're a PSW, you're new to the field. Take the medication administration course through the nucleus, through the regional learning center. These are things that you can put on your resume to show that you're getting ready for this field. This is actually could be quite useful for giving you some of these steps. So this is a little bit of a sidetrack here, just because I've noticed a lot of people asking about what they can do to get their resumes better. So
Yeah,
um,
no, absolutely. There's no harm in having this education, if even if you can't necessarily use it, without proper delegation. It's a really good thing if you actually know what the hell you're talking about.
for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. The
Yeah.
other areas that we get a lot of where people can't say no to, so moving from delegation, pivoting to the physical side of the job. So what's the most common example that we see when it comes to PSWs not saying no? Could have worded that sentence better, but I didn't.
So one of the things, and this is a story about me, and I'm hanging myself up right now a little bit. But
Oh, do tell.
when I was a new PSW, and I was working in a long-term care facility, and we had a woman that was a resident that had MS, and she was a full Hoyer lift into her bed, from wheelchair to bed. And I went into the room with my very much older and more experienced HCA. And she said to me, we don't need, let's not do the Hoyer. It's going to take way too long. Let's just two-person bomb her into bed. And so for the PSWs watching this, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, the two-person bombing into bed, which means it's a two-person pivot transfer and, you'd lift at the same time, move them to the bed, whatever. So me and my young stupidity was like, okay, let's do this. And we went to go 1, 2, 3. We lifted her and then we went to put her on her bed. But I guess someone had been in her room and they had unlocked the wheels on her wheelchair,
Ooh.
or no, on her
Or
bed.
bed, or bed,
So
yeah.
we ended up racing. I mean, I laughed, but it was not funny because we ended up chasing the bed across the room with this poor resident in our arms. And lucky enough, we were able to get her onto the bed safely and everything was safely. But from that moment, Ian, I never went against the rules when it came to lifting.
Well, let's say it didn't go right. What would have happened?
She would have fallen on the floor,
And I would have most likely broken a bone.
broken a bone, concussion, head wound, whatever you want to call it. And then guess who is up,
Not even that. But
without a paddle?
look at the cost that would have cost the system, though. Here's a
Oh
little
my gosh,
question. Now
beyond.
she's got to go to hospital for 3 or 4 days. This is tens of thousands of dollars because someone said, we can do this easier and we don't need to follow the rules. Had you said no, well, in this case it worked out, but had you said no, you're following the safety rules. These rules are there for a reason. They're not there just for to make your job harder. They're there to protect the system and to protect the cost of the system. Oh, gosh.
Oh, and by me sharing that story, I'm hoping that, I'm humanizing what we're talking about a little bit because, you know, uh, I was not a perfect PSW. Nobody is a perfect PSW or human, and we're all going to make mistakes. I mean, that's just what it is. But in this case, that really taught me that I would never do that again. And let me tell you, and it was brought up more than a few times when I worked in long-term care, even in home care. Oh, don't worry about that. We'll just do it this way. And I was a stickler for, nope. This is what the care plan says. That's what that says right there. Is that person's a sit to stand, or they're a two-person, or they're a Hoyer lift, and that's what we're going to do. And I don't care if it takes me 15 more minutes. This is what has to get done because I'm not going to break my back
Yeah,
or
and
hurt my resident.
so what can a PSW do though? I mean, I'm a PSW and I'm on shift and my boss comes up and says, I know it's a two-person lift, but I want you to try anyway. How do you say no to that? Like you're alone. So I
You say
guess
no.
you say no and then contact the association immediately
You
and
say
contact
no. I
us.
mean,
Like,
if they're going against, like I always say to
yeah,
PSWs, and I say it like we have students here at the center where the office is, and I said to them, one of the best things PSWs can do in their line of work is carry, those police notepads.
yeah,
And you carry that on you and you document for every single thing that you've done for every single client or resident for yourself. Do not use full names, do not use addresses. Obviously use, pseudonyms or like initials or even the number of the house that you went to visit. But, put that information in there because I've seen it more than once, you and I both, Ian, where that has saved the PSW's butt because they were being accused. And I never told her that she didn't have to do the two-person pivot transfer, and then all of a sudden the PSW produces this document that shows that in actuality that was the case.
yeah, you have to cover yourself. And especially if you know you're being asked to do something wrong. And this is where we're putting PSW are up against it really because they're being asked to basically saying we don't have enough staff. We're not going to hire any more PSW, so we need you to cut the slack. You're going to go in there, and then you're going to be forced to say no to deny care to somebody.
Yeah.
So now it's your fault that there's not enough PSWs on staff. That's what ends up how you end up feeling as a person. They're like, oh shit, this is my responsibility. If I don't do this, no one will. And then the higher ups are just like, well,
Again, remember I talked about last Friday. The system sets the PSWs up to fail. No matter which way we go, no matter what we say no to something, suddenly we're being written up about it.
but
You
if
know
it,
what I mean? We don't do an unsafe maneuver and suddenly we're in trouble.
well, that's the problem though. I mean, we're being set up to fail. Okay, so no one's talking about patient rights. Like,
No.
be right back to that. You injure that patient. That patient's now probably more likely to suffer something fatal. There's now additional comorbidities that are going to be taking into play. What's the advantage here? To save a few bucks on staffing, so the system has to spend millions on covering up the disadvantages of that or the errors of that?
Unreal.
It's
It
unreal.
really is unreal.
And then the PSW has to go and explain to the families on the day, and even nurses do too. Like, this is not just a PSW thing. Nurses do this too. Frontline healthcare who have to interact with the public have to somehow, a lot of times, feel like they have to justify why there isn't enough things, or at least explain why there isn't enough. And it's decisions that they had no part in. So it's extremely unfair. And our patient risks just keep going up and up and up. So not good. Yeah. So
No, and then I do think about the patient or the resident, right? Like you're sitting there and you're watching this interaction, especially if you're still cognitively aware, and you're watching this interaction, you're thinking, oh my God, you're really gonna have just one PSW do my care? You're just gonna like what like it is so demeaning to them and to the personal support worker. But I always say, like PSW say, well, I can't say no. Yes, you can say no because, and I've said this time and time again, and I'm going to say it time and time again. Number one, PSWs are the eyes and the ears of the residents in their care. They're also the arms and the legs of the individuals we care for. But the most important thing that the PSW is the resident, client, and patient's voice. You are their voice. And if you are standing there and allowing your employer to bully you, your DOC to bully you, your charge nurse, your fellow PSWs to bully you, then you are putting your resident, your client, your patient at risk. And that is unacceptable. And we need, as a whole, as PSWs, to take that more seriously, to being given that gift and that responsibility, because that's what it is. It's a gift. That's a lot of trust that these individuals that we care for are putting in the personal support worker. And we need to act as such.
especially if you're a PSW, well said, absolutely.
Thank you.
Especially when we're talking about long-term care PSWs and PSWs in the publicly funded system,
Yes.
rare before publicly funded long-term care
Yes.
hospitals, etc.
Yeah.
Um, those PSWs, you have unions, you have government representation. There are mechanisms in place to protect you in the city. We have the association in place. So we're moving into a territory now as we professionalize this the PSW profession where there's going to be an expectation for you to say no. We need to bring these issues more higher, a bit more into the higher public profile, because saying no is a way of identifying where there are gaps in services. You don't say no, everything continues as it is. We all are basically supporting a bad system. And this ties into that old thing, Miranda, that we've heard about for years, fighting the culture of fear. Not being allowed to say no is basically a culture of fear reinforced on a daily basis. You can't, or you're going to lose your job, which means you're not going to have enough money to eat. This is how things are getting.
It's
So
and it's
it's not.
legitimate. It's legitimate. I mean, I understand that culture of fear. However, the only way we're going to get rid of this culture of fear is if the PSW stand up and say, we're taking control.
So you can.
We are going to do our jobs to the best of our abilities. We're going to say no to unsafe practices, and we're going to protect the individuals that have put their utmost trust and faith in us. It's
I,
not, I mean, it sounds simple. I know it's not simple for the PSWs that are watching this. I know it's not simple, but we got to start somewhere,
well,
guys,
I
because
think we
otherwise it's going to be a continuum of this crap.
Well, I think what we need to do is remind them people who are watching in PSWs, if you're feeling that you're in this situation, you have your association. That's what we're here for. You need to reach out to us. We need to know. We don't need the names. We don't need to know the names of supervisors. But where is this facility? If it's a publicly funded facility, are you understaffed? Is this putting patients at risks? Is this an issue that we need to be aware of? Are you requiring supports? Please let us know. We'll do our best. I mean, can we solve the problem? No, but at least we can bring it to the attention and make people more aware of the problem and not ignore it anymore. At the very least, that's something that we can try to do. So that
We've been getting a lot of those comments on a lot of our videos that our wonderful marketing director keeps putting out, where we're saying really kind of strong statements about the front line of Ontario healthcare. And in my opinion, it's pissing off the right people, because they need to be made aware of this. And it's also made the public more aware of the triumphs and the downside of the personal support worker sector. And we're not, we're only, like I said before, we're only human, and we need to be viewed as humans, not as machines. Definitely not as caregivers, We need to be viewed as professionals.
And not as a mass of workers. Because I know speaking
No.
with, we were dealing with back years ago with government officials and senior official leaders in Ontario, they kept describing the recruitment of PSW as akin to describing a river, that there's a river being held up. So this mass of workers, I'm like, what are you talking about? Massive workers. These are the professionals that need to provide care. This isn't just some rabble coming in. This is an actual workforce that you need to
Mm.
respect. So they don't speak like that anymore. Those days are gone. But I think what we want to say is this is the next stage now. You do have to, but don't be afraid. We got to start fighting this culture of fear for sure.
We have to start fighting it because, we I talk to a lot of PSWs, as do you, Ian, as the rest of our staff do, where there is that culture of fear and there is that hesitancy to, say anything outside of what they think they're allowed to say, and standing up for themselves. But I have to say one thing is that these same PSWs that won't stand up for themselves when they're at work, if I say something wrong, they have no trouble
Fine.
telling me that I'm in the wrong. But so
Fair
and
enough.
take that energy that you direct at me and put it, and I
In
don't
me.
mind. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. That does not bother me. But take that energy and that passion and the passion that we feel in these comments.
Well,
Like
there's so much
we get
anger.
it. Oh, anger and passion and just hopelessness in a lot of ways where they're doing the impossible. I mean, I hate to say this, but I almost feel like remember through COVID when the PSWs were like literally working the floors alone
Yeah.
and there was not enough PSWs and all this fun stuff. And I used fun as sarcastic. And the feeling I got off of them was just so much passion, so much anger, and so much hopelessness.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to feel that again.
Oh, I'm
And
definitely.
I am absolutely irate that that's how they're feeling because they shouldn't be feeling this way. I can't tell them how to feel, but things are happening that are making them feel this way.
And they're
And
right. And we're right to feel this way as PSWs. I mean, this is how you feel. This is how you're treated every day, and it's a daily stress. And again, you are dealing with. You're basically speaking. You're the interaction between government policy and the patient in bed.
yeah,
You and the nurses and the other people in those, but PSWs are there every day, and that care element. So you have to hear the complaints about the system. You have to hear all the negativity. You have to absorb it. And the negativity might come from patients who hopefully are more understanding, but they will be negative. And then you have negativity coming from the boss, and then you have negativity coming from coworkers. There's too much negativity. And it's system and you're right, Marian. It seems like they've been set up to fail. At least the way it's been currently set up. I have to concur.
currently it sure
I
seems
hate
that
when
way.
it's
And I hate saying that because I mean I'd
that's what
love to have a PSW podcast where everything is hunky dory and the sun is shining and the Care Bears are smiling and everything's great.
and
But
we
unfortunately,
will because we there are a number of long-term care homes that we do know that we have identified that have been identified in media that buck the trend. They are not like other long-term care homes. I want to find these ones and talk to them about what is it they're doing, how do they treat staff, because these are models that should be extended across the province,
absolutely.
and at whatever cost to those who have to provide it.
Exactly.
It's
And just for all the PSWs watching, we understand a lot of times you guys are put in situations where you don't necessarily have the appropriate training in order to do these things. One of those things is palliative care and end of life care. We've been really hearing from a lot of the newer personal support workers who don't really, number one, they didn't understand that palliative care and end of life care are two different things. So that was interesting. But also that, they just don't have that training. And when they do get the training, it's not PSW specific. So I'm really happy to tell you guys that within the coming weeks, we are coming out with a new training program through our professional development center, and it's palliative care from a PSW perspective. And it's all very focused on the job and the role of the personal support worker, and it also goes really heavily in how to deal with family members at that time of their lives. So stay tuned for that because we're the more we hear from you guys, the more you guys say to us about what you want and what you need, the more we're going to do our due diligence and bring you that extra training or, try to get you guys more discounts on certain things. We do our damn best for you guys. It's not easy and it's not fast, but we do our best. So stay tuned for that micro credentialing that's going to be coming out on palliative care. We've been talking nonstop for 24 minutes, Ian, about when to say no as a PSW.
Are we going to say no to? We're saying no more to this conversation. No.
Yeah, no more to this conversation.
Well, I want to just one thing. Just you're mentioning the professional development center. I want to tie back into the beginning. We get a lot of we have a chat online. Anyone can come in and chat on our webpage, ask questions about whatever. This is where we get a significant amount of some of our questions. And one of the questions we get a lot of is, I need a PSW job. I'm a new graduate. I'm looking for work. No one will hire me. Okay, so we have a lot of new graduates. They come right out of school and they start submitting resumes and they're getting nothing. We're hearing people submitting 60, 70 resumes. Now, this is largely in the GTA area, so you know who you are. We all know who we're all dealing with this current market situation. If you are new to the PSW profession, we are strongly encouraging you, please explore our professional development center and start taking some of these courses. Yes, these courses cost money, but there is a discount if you're a member, which is, I think, significant. And they will help
100%.
build your resume and get you better prepared and more marketable for the jobs. The days where you walked out of the PSW program and into a professional job within hours, they're gone.
They're gone.
You need to start words that we used to hear use. Your resume needs to become more competitive. You need to take your profession seriously. These skill sets will help you should you also decide to explore nursing or other medical professions. It gives you
Yep.
expands your horizon. So I just want to make sure people are aware the association cannot get you jobs. We're not an employment agency, but we can give you the tools and you should be taking the tools to make yourself the best PSW that you can be. So I just want
Very well said, Ian.
so just
Very well said.
please
It's the
go
truth of it, and I say that all the time. It's you cannot just walk out of a PSW program like I did 20 years ago, and I walked right into a long-term care job. That doesn't happen anymore. So now you're up against a lot of competition. And so you have to stand out amongst the crowd. And so things like volunteering at a retirement home or long-term care facility, taking our micro-credentialing through our professional development center, even the membership with the association, that goes a long way too, because it shows that you are investing in yourself as a professional PSW. These are all things that employers are looking for. And also registering with HESCAPOA, who is our new regulatory body in Ontario. So those are all really important things that you need to have if you want to be successful. If you're
absolutely.
looking at this as a career, not just a fly by night.
And an example of this. So, for example, we get a lot of people saying, I just graduated or I've just started my career as a PSW from another country. I need to get a job in a hospital in the next
Full
48,
time.
full
Full
time
time.
in the next month. And this is not any community. This is all the PSWs that we deal with, a lot of them. Hospitals go through a rigorous recruitment and referral process. They look at 3 or 4 references of past experience going back several years. So we get a lot of new people saying, I've been supplying my resumes to hospitals. I'm not hearing anything back. Hospitals are looking for very experienced people. These are very good. These are the higher end jobs in the market. They're looking for trained PSWs that can go on the job and be ready. So even if you have a nursing degree from another country, you're not going
Mhm.
to be viewed as being ready until you do some experience as a PSW in the Canadian health system, which is why we're making sure internationally educated nurses know about our international PSW membership to get that experience to build towards those while you're
I
working.
should also point out as well, full time in hospital or long term care. Good luck. If you ever see it, that'll be a miracle because
Very
PSWs are, and also hospital wise too. Keep in mind, PSWs, hundreds of PSWs across the province have been let go from their jobs in hospitals across Ontario. So hospital is really not the be all end all right now.
if you can find the jobs, and you can still get these jobs, but again, these jobs are going to people, and sometimes there's a luck of the draw where you're a new PSW and you're in a long-term care facility in the middle of a rural area and you can get that job. But this conversation is for those in the Southern Ontario GTA. You need to be more competitive and you need to be realistic with your expectations. This is not negative, but this is good advice. Start working. Even working for yourself sometimes can help.
Amen to that.
So we went
Okay.
along. We went from no to education and back. I don't know, Maria.
Well, it was one heck of a PSW podcast today. I want to thank everyone for joining us as we talked about PSW saying no, when to say no, and personal experiences, and then education at the end. Um,
It ties in.
it's
The more you educated, the more you know what to do, and the more you know what you can and can't do, which is why they're all interrelated. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So I just want to say this weekend is Mother's Day, and I just wanted to
Yes.
say happy Mother's Day to all of our PSWs and friends. And working or not, thank you if you're working. If you're not working, I hope you enjoy yourself with your family. But thank you so much for working on a weekend when nobody probably wants to work. We really appreciate it, and we definitely see you guys. If you're not a member of the association yet, if you're on Facebook, go to our main profile here, click the link in our bio. Same with our TikTok, where we stream live all the time for PSW Podcast. The link is in the profile. Have a look, click on become a member, and it's all self-explanatory from there. And like Ian said, there is a live chat on our website that you can talk to an OPSWA agent. So go ahead and go over there if you have any questions or concerns. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, Ian.
Likewise, there will be staff on shift this weekend. If anyone has any questions, not to worry, feel free to ask. We're not all of us are mothers.
Well, anyways, thanks so much, everyone. Have a happy, happy, happy Mother's Day. We wish you guys all the best. We'll be back again next Friday with yet again another PSW podcast. And with that, I'm going to say, Ops out.